Music may be the soundtrack of our lives, but now a new book takes that a step further and says it is so much more. The World in 6 Songs argues that 6 types of songs helped lay the very groundwork for human nature. Author Daniel Levitin joins us in studio. Great to have you in to discuss this.
Good morning.
When you talk about the 6 songs, and they are knowledge, religion, love, comfort, friendship, and joy.
Yep.
So how does that work? What about all of the other sentiments and emotions?
Well, this is really the story about how our ancestors used music tens of thousands of years ago to do things like preserve information, to comfort one another, to form social bonds. And sure, the opposites might fall into those categories too. And you might be able to come up with songs that don't exactly seem to fit. But this is really the story about where music came from. And, for Jeff, where the music of Sting came from.
Exactly. Well, but you also talk about the connection to the, brain growth and human nature and the cell changes.
Things that differentiate the human brain from animal brains. So, humans compose music. Animals have musical sounds and things. But humans use music to take knowledge, for example.
Okay.
Before there was writing, if our ancestors needed to memorize something like a list of what the poisonous plants were, the edible ones, if they couldn't write it down, they probably memorized it by setting it to music. And we see vestiges of this kind of knowledge song even today. Most children learn the alphabet set to music.
Right.
Or you have the hokey pokey to learn the body parts, right?
That's right. And children always love music, and they get attached to it, and then you never forget that. You also say, or you talk about the fact that, when you look at evolution, studied and studied and studied again by anthropologists, by biologists, psychologists, that kind of thing, but not music, and music goes back tens of thousands of years in all societies. Yeah,
there's no society we know of that lacks music, and music seems to be one of the oldest things that our species has. You go to ancient burial sites and you find bone flutes 50 and 60,000 years old. Music's been around a long time. I don't think it's that it's been ignored by anthropologists. There's a rich literature. It's just that it had to all be brought together into one place.
So how did the likes of Sting help out?
Sting and Joni Mitchell and Rodney Crowell and David Byrne and other musicians who had read my first book, This Is Your Brain on Music, were interested in the new project. And we're very generous in sharing insights about a life spent in musical communication, where they think music comes from, and some of their stories and their observations are sprinkled throughout the book.
And Bobby McFerrin said at one point that you explain how it is that a sad song can make us cry or make us feel sad right away.
And why we listen to it when we're sad, right? Why is it that sad music is comforting? Often when we're sad or depressed, we feel alone and like no one understands us. And that right sad song comes on, and suddenly there's somebody there at the edge of the cliff with you. Yeah. And you're not alone anymore, and they understand you.
So that is comfort. That falls into that comfort category.
And maybe you've had the experience where a song comes on and you go, aha, that's how I feel. And that
works too. And is it true that Joni Mitchell didn't like it at first?
She hated the idea of the book at first because she thought from the title that it was just a list. Like my favorite 6 songs or a bunch of lists.
Okay.
And she thought that trivialized the whole enterprise, but when she read the book, she came around.
Then she liked it. And you didn't come up with these 6 songs right away. I mean, that was throughout the research to narrow it down, to get to that point.
And I listened to thousands of pieces of music, from pygmy music to the music of the Mecronoti Indians of the Amazon, and music from the Ural Mountains that's been brought back by intrepid musicologists. And it seemed as though there were these 6 natural categories that emerged about how people used music to communicate with one another, especially in pre-literate times.
And literally through the evolution
of
mankind, and then human relations comes into play.
What we find is that as humans developed into larger and larger living groups, music sort of served a social bonding function, creating coherence in a society. You can think of it, as you said, the soundtrack of civilization.
The 6 songs, it's fascinating. Thank you for coming in to talk
Thanks
to us about it. Give us a glimpse of the book.